All right. So today we're doing another book review. This is the first fiction that I'm going to be covering on the channel. I've read three fictions this year. I want to say four. And this one stuck out to me as probably one of the most relevant to familial and to everything we're building so far. I would say this one in Fahrenheit 451, which I'm going to make a video on. Um, these two have for sure stuck out to me as most relevant to our mission. So I figured I'd start with Brave New World. This book, at first, like the first 40 pages, I was like, man, this is rough. I couldn't really visualize the imagery that was and the scenes that were being painted. Yeah, up until pages like 50 or the range from 60 to 100, then I really started to visualize and kind of understand what exactly was happening here. And I think what changed it for me is I was doing research online early on when I was reading, and someone had put in like a Reddit post. They said it's not a book about characters; it's a book about society, and you're not gonna look towards character development and things of that nature. I thought that was a really good way to look at it, and with that perspective, made the book a much more enjoyable read. So I definitely would recommend this book. I don't want to. Again, this is my first time doing a fiction on the channel, so I don't want to go too crazy on the plot and too crazy on the story. It's definitely, again, worth reading, and I wrote down a couple notes. I was trying to enjoy this, and fictions have, to me, been carrying a lot of weight, especially when it comes to themes. So I tried to document as many themes as I could, but we'll go over a couple today. I think I have like 5 notes written down. The first being, this book came out in 1932, and one of the big plot points is obviously conditioning. If you know anything about this book, that's very clear coming into it. But conditioning and control, when you condition people, you control them. And I wanted to reference the year that this was published because this was 1932, talking about conditioning and control. So much time has passed since then. you know, so much time to where just south of 100 years, and it's interesting to see what conditioning nowadays looks like. Like, at least for me, like, this book really allowed me to take a step back and ask, have I missed conditioning in my personal life? What exactly are people conditioning us to be and to do? And the obvious answer to that for me is, obviously social media. And, now our lunches or our days look like, us just scrolling on social media and getting involved in things that don't necessarily matter, getting riled up about things that you have no control over. And instead of educating ourselves, we just kind of brainlessly consume information. So we've kind of been, in my opinion, we've been conditioned not to critically think. I made a previous episode on kind of the state of AI, and this is really the point that I was trying to drive home, is that critical thinking, that human element of thinking and actually, constructing your own opinions. I pray that feeling and that skill doesn't disappear. And it kind of feels like we've been conditioned not to have our own opinions, or we've been conditioned not to listen to others' opinions. And that's the power of an algorithm. Like social media, namely, let's say on Instagram, when something political happens, you have you have your side of the news. So if you're typically left leaning, interacting with left leaning content, then you are going to get left leaning opinions on things that happen. And right now it's very extreme. The algorithms are so good, it could probably tell you everything about you and what you believe in. So you're being fed the same content, the extremities, and vice versa. If you're right leaning, you're getting the polar opposites. And it's just a crazy, crazy thing that an algorithm can play into conditioning and who is putting that forth. Like, is that from the mind of Zuckerberg? Was that his main mission, was to condition the people? It's a question that I asked when I was reading this book, and I genuinely have no clue what the answer is. I pray that wasn't his intention, but who knows? So, right here, instant gratification replaces. Hold up, sorry, my handwriting's horrible. Okay, instant gratification replaces deep emotional, intellectual, or spiritual fulfillment. So that theme is maybe not like the most important theme in the book, but it was one that stood out to me. Everyone is kind of just living life. Like, there's no real purpose. People are just sleeping with other people. The women are, not having feelings, and neither are the men. And again, it just relates to the instant gratification of people. Like, love doesn't even exist in this world. Like, it is so far gone. People are so distracted that the main focus is just, I want this person now, I'm going to have them now, and there's nothing behind it, right? And one of the main stories is, one of the main characters is Bernard, and he takes Lenina as their name, and they go to basically the reservation in the U.S., and the book takes place overseas, and they meet this guy named John the Savage, who's just kind of like a lost kid who was born in the free world, where there is no conditioning, um, there is no higher power when it comes to, like, they kind of built their own society, but there is no like conditioning structure and things of that nature. And John the Savage they bring him back to the new world, and John the Savage ends up like having feelings for Lenina, and like, for him it's explainable, and Bernard like is kind of on the fence. He's kind of like middle line, uh, you know, whereas Lenina like can't even comprehend those sort of feelings, and it's pretty interesting. They draw a great contrast between all the characters, pretty well. But yeah, so it almost is like you have those deep emotional connections, or you're starting to feel that it's a bad thing, and Lenina is a good example of what happens when you start feeling those feelings. She just pops what's called soma, and soma is like just gets you all loopy and high, and that distraction kind of regulates her emotions back to where they should be, which is nothing. So I hope that made sense, but it made me think, like, yeah, and I think the context is very important for this point. Um, but again, it's like instant gratification, feeling stuff is hard. like like I mean, even think about the dating world. Like, I'm married now, and happy, but the journey of getting here and feeling feelings is it's not always kind, and it's not supposed to be. Like, you have to go through your breakups, you have to go through your hardships, just to become the person that you need to be when you meet your wife or your future wife. And there is none of that in this world. So I thought it was very interesting. Um, Here's another note: the state equates happiness with comfortability. Um, that's kind of, I touched on that a little bit, but these people, again, they're not designed to feel anything. It's their lives are supposed to be extremely comfortable, and in real life, it's like if you face that discomfort and if you actually pursue your personal legend. I always say personal legend. I read The Alchemist probably 3 or 4 times in my life, the last 4 years. It's one of my favorite books, but I need to make one of these on that. But if you're chasing your personal legend, you're going to be uncomfortable at times. It's not always easy. It's not just a straight line to getting better. I mean, even with this channel, even with reading and everything, like I would say it gets mildly uncomfortable. You're having, your thoughts and opinions challenged, but that's what we're supposed to be doing. That's how you progress your opinions and beliefs. And right now we're in a very divisive time in the States, and I would say it's going to look a lot different in the future. I think it's going to be educated versus uneducated, and part of me feels like we're already kind of getting to that point, and there's going to be a foil to that where it's empathetic and not unempathetic. And if you have both education and empathy, I think that's a recipe for success. So, um, but it takes going through the uncomfortable feelings. Like someone asks you something and you don't know the answer, it takes yourself having to subdue your ego and to acknowledge, I do not know that. Educate me. I had an instance. I mean, my buddy Bozeman, he was like, "Hey, you going to the this birthday dinner, uh, or this birthday party or whatever?" And I was like, "What's the vibe? Is there gonna be food?" And I had already seen the invite. I'd already RSVP'd. He's like, "Did you read the invite?" I was like, "No." I was like, "I'm sorry, man." And it's things like that to where it was uncomfortable telling him no. And this is super minute, super small, but it was uncomfortable telling him, "No, I did not read the invite, but I knew I was gonna be there. Educate me. What is the invite?" And that's something that I'm getting better at as a human, is one, acknowledging, but two, taking that step, just reading what people send you. Um, and regardless, I would have been there, but that is a detail. Like you have to, because I could have so easily been like, "Yeah, I read it." Of course I'm there. Of course I know it's a dinner, whatever. But you have to subdue your ego, and when you subdue your ego, those situations, they're not necessarily as uncomfortable as you might think. You know, we all have different priorities, and if you surround yourself with empathetic people, they'll understand and they'll catch you up to speed if you miss something. If you're too busy, like, come on, you got people who will educate you and who will help you and want to see you um, educated. At least that's the people I surround myself with. So, and that makes me think of my buddy Mooney. Like him and I were building familial. Basically, he's building like the whole systems, engineering, and the architecture, and I'm building the platform. And it's super. I could have just been like, dude, I got it myself, but their knowledge set and Moody's knowledge set is so valuable to me. And all it took was me subduing my ego and understanding that I don't know everything you know. Help me. Please help me. Like, just let's do it. Let's do this together. And I think a lot of people stress out again about the what what is the compensation? How do I pay for this? What is this? And in a weird way, it's sort of like instant gratification issues, you know? Like these are issues that you don't necessarily need to figure out. I'm not getting paid. I'm not getting paid yet. I was upfront with Moody, like, dude, this is probably not gonna be a paid gig or anything. Like just heads up. And again, it's subduing your ego, being honest. And we don't see that very often. Um, everyone's supposed to be an expert on everything. It's kind of what it feels like. I see that a lot in the news. There's people that I know brought in to discuss solutions to problems they're not even specialized in. And for me, it's crazy that they were invited, one, but two, to even go and to carry any sort of expertise when it's not even existent. It's a little crazy. So, sorry, I went off on a tangent there. Um, yeah, knowledge of history is banned. This is the last thing I put down. But when it comes to a society, like, we have a history, we understand the past, we understand like history repeats itself, and that's something we hear all the time. But if you didn't know your history, you have no idea what is coming in front of you. No general idea. Like, even if it's a completely new situation that has never been heard of, like, you can reference the past to kind of, better understand what you're about to go through. And for me, at least in my head, this is kind of the correlation that I drew, was everyone's like, oh, we're in the AI boom, AI boom. I go back .com boom, I research it and better understand how people adapted then. And you got to understand, like, there's companies that obviously rocketed in that time and then crumbled, went bankrupt. But then there's the other companies that, stayed strong, kind of had a long-term viewpoint. And that's where I want to be, is, you can ride the boom, but you can still build something sustainable, especially with AI. It's way, in my opinion, it's a little bit different, but you can learn from the past and understand, like, okay, this is just, we can educate ourselves from the past and understand that we can still build something, is what I'm getting at. But it also makes you think about this Tony Robbins quote, where he's talking about everyone freaks out and with new things that are coming their way. And the reason why they freak out is because they don't know history. And I thought that was a super profound comment and insight, because it's totally true. If you know the history and if you understand how things work, you do not get overwhelmed by what is coming your way and what is about to happen. Think about relationships. Genuinely, think about friendships. You have someone burn you, or you have someone whose personality you don't gel with. This is a good example and personal. If you have a personality you don't gel with, for me, it's like liars. I don't mix well with liars, and I've noticed that it eats me alive when someone lies to me or lies to others, and I just have to sit there and I'll bring it up and then nothing happens. I do not gel with that. And I could tell you, if I met someone and they were a liar, I would probably pull the trigger pretty fast. Like, leave the friendship or leave the relationship. And that to me is just because I know my history. The first liar that I met established that, and I didn't understand what was wrong. I was trying to force something that clearly it was just a difference in morals, difference in morals. And I just kept trying to force it, and then eventually I just realized I can't hang out with liars. That's it. It's just a compatibility issue. And obviously that's a personal viewpoint of, ensuring that we learn from history, but it scales up with any issue that you want to look at. So I'm working on educating myself in history. I think that's part of the reasons why I'm revisiting some of the classics. And I say revisiting, but this is like my first time reading this book, actually. I read it in high school, and I should really just say read it in quotes, because I don't think I gave it the time of day that it deserved. I don't think I read it fully. I think I was just doing the reading assignments, and it was a great book. So I highly recommend. I mean, even now, just it brought me to have this what is this, like 20 minutes of critical thinking. I recommend it. I think it'll do the same for you, and definitely talk through it. My buddy Bozeman, he read this, recommended that I read it. And him and I were talking about it for, I want to say, a good hour of a hike that we hit together. So definitely recommend. Great book. I want to say I'll be doing more fictions on the channel, but we'll see. Yeah, so thank you guys for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have different opinions, or if you want me to elaborate on any notes in the comments or anything at all. Feel free. So thank you guys.